Okay, good evening everyone. I know everybody has been waiting for this last but the most important part probably. And I want to just quickly read the names who are here representing their journals, and I'll say the first and last name of the editor first, then which journal they represent. The first one is Dr. Endre Boros, Annals of Operations Research. As I read, please applause and try to... You should someone calm them down, because they've been waiting like 15 minutes now. Then comes Computers and Operations Research, Dr. John Mittenheim. Decision Sciences Journal, Dr. Dursun Deland is representing. Decision Support Systems, Dr. James Marsden. European Journal of Operations Research, Operational Research, Dr. Slowinski. And Information Systems Frontiers, Dr. Ramesh. Information Systems Research, Dr. Olivia Schenk. And Journal of Multi-Criteria Decision Analysis, Gilbert. Oh, sorry, I skipped one.
I'm David Woodruff, Informed Journal on Computing.
Then comes Journal of Multi-Criteria Decision Analysis, Gilberto. And I cannot read the rest.
Ryan Tomlin, Manufacturing and Service Operations Management.
Omega, the International Journal of Management Science, Dr. Ben Lev. And Production Operations Management, Dr. Subhata Kumar. Okay, I hope that relieves the tension a little bit. One of the senior professors that I'm working with, he suggested that we should not hold such a session because you might have some papers under review, which I do. If they get angry with something, you have the chance that it will be. They won't be. Let's see. So the structure will be like this. At the beginning, actually, first of all, I want to thank particularly, definitely all of the editors that they spared so much time to be here with us. But European Journal of Operations Research, Dr. Slowinski and Dr. Dursun Deland, Dr. Ramesh, and who couldn't make it here is Dr. Cheri, Speier-Pero. We have two special issues ongoing, Decision Analytics and Business Analytics. If you guys are interested, reach out to them, to me, or one of the guest editors, which is listed on the web. That will be a good opportunity for you, probably, to consider. And what we'll do next, each of the editors will either spend 2 or 5 minutes, based on their own preference. Either we'll use PPT slides or just talk off the top of the head, I believe. And we want to spare more time for the question-answer session. That was their preference. They said rather than us talking, let the audience ask the questions. But please try to, let's finish this like 8, maybe 7:30, so that everybody can have their dinner on time. Okay, so I'll start with Dr. Boros, I guess.
I'd love to click on this. Thank you very much. Let me find my... So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce very briefly the Annals of Operations Research to you. This is a journal considering all aspects of OR and accepts regular research papers, surveys, and even case studies. So, we have a small and enthusiastic editorial board, and I'd like to point out that we have a special section at the very bottom, if you can see, which is dedicated to health issues, medicine, and OR applications in healthcare. Now, this is an area full with data analysis applications, and that's definitely a big part of OR. So please think about it if you have interesting results. Let me finally just mention a few statistics. We have an steadily increasing number of submissions. In the past few years, it's almost doubled. The Annals publishes two kinds of issues. guest-edited ones, which are dedicated to a particular topic. Typically, a group of editors get together, submit a proposal, and they're ready to real board evaluate it. And if it's accepted, then it's announced, and then papers are collected. And about more than half of the issues are guest-edited issues at the Annals currently. And so you can see on the top table that we have over 1,000 submissions by now a year. And a good half of them is about which goes to the special guest-edited volumes. The bottom table shows you the regular submissions which go to the regular issues. And as you see, the acceptance rate there is a little bit lower. So please, if you submit an excellent paper. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Find the right spot here. See it. So, Francisco is traveling, and so he couldn't make it. One of the area editors, and I'm not far away, so I was able to come. As you can tell from our new cover, we're incorporating surveys and operations research and management science into computers and OR, and that's going to start in 2017. There are 6 area editors, and when 2017 rolls around, Michael Gorman will come on board also as an area editor for the survey section. Let's see. So the focus of the journal is, of course, the application of computers and operations research techniques to provide viable solutions to relevant applied problems. Both the type of problem and the solution structure, those are the key focus elements that are equally important for us at Computers and OR. Papers typically end up highlighting both algorithmic, methodological developments. They rely heavily on computer-based experimentation and present insights, hopefully, into the problem that's being investigated. Our focus is more on the decision analytics side. We don't really do that much in that area, so that would not. Make sure you read the aims and scope of a journal before you decide to submit something to the journal. Statistics-wise, we're currently on track to process 1,500 art submissions. It's a lot of submissions, and fortunately, Francisco's weeding a lot of those out so that area editors don't have to. Our rejection rate is approximately 90%, and our target time for performing reviews in the first round is 28 days. The percentage of them that actually make it in 28 days, I wouldn't say is all that high, but that's our target. That's it. Next. Let's see if I can shut this off.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dursun Denen. I'm representing Decision Sciences. Cheri couldn't make it. Decision Sciences has been around for quite some time, one of the reputable journals. Now, the question that we often get is what kind of papers goes into decision science? How can we make the paper receptive to the viewership of decision science? Obviously, like most of the journals represented, there is a shift in focus on analytics. Decision science traditionally has been publishing theoretical, empirical, methodology development type of work, but at the end, I think it has to center around managerial decision making. It has to have both rigor and relevance, practicality combined together that addresses a decision-making situation. So the quality of the paper matters. It can be from any fraction in business area, so there is not a focus area per se. I don't have a lot of statistics, but as is the case in many of the journals, the number of submissions are increasing exponentially, so the acceptance rate is going down, obviously. So that means more and more quality has to be put into the papers. The depth is important. The novelty is important. So simple application of known methods to a readily available data set is not going to cut it probably for most of the journals represented here, as is the case also in decision science. There has to be novelty, something new that kind of pushes the envelope, the edge, a step forward. So that's all I have.
I'm going to skip the microphone. I'm Jim Marsden. I'm the editor-in-chief of Decision Support Systems. I think what I'd like to do tonight is hopefully get some audience feedback on some really important issues in publishing in general in our academic journals. First of which is, what's the role of proceedings? And do we need proceedings in any way? And does it make sense for a journal to try to publish in a paper extended from proceedings when you're going to wind up having a chunk of material that creates a potential copyright problem? That's the first thing. The second thing I think that as a journal editor I'm very sensitive to is data quality. I can't tell you the number of papers that are submitted where the only discussion of the data is one paragraph and nothing about quality, validation of the data. The most important thing we deal with. We talk about analytics, and we give short shrift to data quality. And then we spend all this time on phenomenal econometric analyses of potentially very bad data. So the data quality issue, I think, is incredibly important. And the third thing is, sadly, one would think in the profession that plagiarism is gone. It is not gone. It is so prevalent and so frustrating when you're going through papers. And those are the topics I think I'd like to hear discussed tonight. So,
what was the last one? What was that?
I'm sorry?
What was the last one?
Plagiarism.
Plagiarism.
Right, and it's plagiarism where people, let's look at a lit review. So what we do is we look at a lit review, and they'll say, oh, Bill says, and here's the last paragraph of Bill's paper. Harry says, and here's the last paragraph of Harry's paper. And then at the end, the authors feel it's important to include 284 references, which I'm sure they have carefully read and gone through. So it's when you see these things over and over again, you go, whoa, this shouldn't be happening. So, Roman, you're next.
I will go to the micro because I prepared some slides. So good evening, I am Ramesh Slowinski. I am coordinating editor of European Journal of Operational Research. This journal is sponsored by European Association of Operational Research Societies. It has been established almost 40 years ago. We are 6 editors and we do not have departmental structure, so we are sharing 120 keywords, and we claim that for this reason some innovative papers going across some traditional domains have a greater chance to be accepted. So this will be announced also by ASIL, that we are launching a special issue on business analytics, and ASIL will be one of the guest editors. I'm inviting you to go to the webpage of the journal, having a lot of interesting information. As to the number of submissions, so of course it is growing, and it is now around 3,300. So of course the acceptance rate is also dropping.
But I would like to attract your attention to some statistics, because we are very proud that accepted papers are not accepted on the basis of only 1 or 2 review reports. In average, as you can see, we are using 2.5 reviewers per accepted paper, and acceptance is based on, in average, on 4.6 reviews. So you can see that we have, in the last 12 months, around 25% of desk rejections and 50% of rejections after review. So this says about our work. We have to send 13,000 invitations to review per year to get 6,000 reviews efficiently. As to the bibliometry, so we are enjoying the position 9 in the portfolio of 82 journals in ORMS. According to some other indicators, for example, eigenvalue or article influence score, we are number 2. And even as to the H index, we are showing the first place with management science. So we are international journal, but half of submissions are coming from Europe. Now, interesting things maybe about the profile of papers accepted. So as you can see, data mining and analytics are also represented among those keywords characterizing submissions, and you see their respective rejection rate, which is around 84%. I would like also to share with you a very impressive number, which is the number of full text downloads of articles from European Journal of Operational Research. So it is now approaching 3 million of full text download per year. So this is, I think, we will all acknowledge a revolution in readings, because when I started my job as editor in this journal, so it was printed only in 800 issues, copies, and so now we are witnessing a revolution in the distribution of scientific information. Also, the last interesting statistics is about editorial time. So we spent 50 weeks from submissions to acceptance, but 15 weeks within that is the time spent with the author. So this is all I prepared. Thank you for your attention.
So good evening, colleagues. I'll just spend a few minutes talking about information systems frontiers. And I just want to give a bit of a historical perspective on this journal. We are right now in the 17th year of this publication. The journal is published originally by Kluwer, now turned into Springer. So it's a Springer publication. In the 90s, me and my colleague Raghav Rao, we co-edited 2 volumes of the Annals of Operational Research. Peter Hammer used to be editor-in-chief. So the topic of that of the 2 volumes was interface between information systems and operations research. We called it one volume as Models of Systems, other one is Systems for Models. So 2 volumes we produced. So at that time, Peter asked us to introduce us to Ken Arrow and asked him to help us with ideas of putting together these 2 volumes. So Ken got so excited about the whole idea, and he told us that why don't you start your own journal, where your journal should be different from traditional OR journals, should be different from traditional MIS journals, should be different from traditional IEEE journals, and also possibly ACM journals, which address some of the critical areas which people are not targeting to many of these journals. So we struggled with him with the idea for quite some time, and then he himself came with the idea of devoting special topics which are in the cutting edge of information systems and operations research. And instead of asking people to publicly, generally soliciting people to submit directly to the journal, wouldn't you have the idea of organizing a journal around special issues? So that's how the whole journal started in 1999. And it was we were producing 4 special issues per year on different topics. And over a period of time, it has grown to a very great extent that we get an array of general submissions also besides the special issues. Now we are producing 6 special issues per year, and of which at least 3 or 4 of them will be dedicated to guest edited by different colleagues. Something along the lines of Annals of Operational Research, use the same model. And thanks to Peter for that idea, who is no longer with us anymore. And so the idea here is to integrate analytical research with empirical research where possible, and address some of the emerging cutting-edge topics which are of relevance today. These topics you can find in journals like, or many of the IEEE journals, which talk about the engineering aspects of technology, and very rarely they address the business side of the story. And if you go to the business journal, they are heavily focused on the business and the empirical modeling of the problems. So an interface between these two needs to be established. I want to give you an example of some of the special issues that which might give you an idea about what these special topical areas are. Just a smattering of a few topical areas I want to share with you. Knowledge management and organizational memory, the special issue. Philosophical reasoning in information systems research. Supply chain systems research and perspective. Information dynamics in the networked world. Cyber law, a review of US criminal, civil and evidence laws as it applies to computer technology. Ambient intelligence. Advances in multi-agency disaster management. These are some of the typical special, and the Internet of Things and applications. Business process analytics are some of the forthcoming issues. So these topical areas are covered purely at a technology or system level in IEEE computer, related journals. So addressing them from an analytical and empirical frameworks would be appropriate for submission to ISF. More so, well, one thing we always look for is completeness and soundness in the submission. So every paper has to tell a compact and innovative story which people should learn from and appreciate. So that is what we look for in all these articles. It doesn't have to be extremely comprehensive. It doesn't have to be very narrow. Completeness and soundness of the story that you tell in the articles is very important. And the innovation is the central theme that we provide, that we require in all the articles. Our acceptance rate is around 10%. So typically each issue consists of about 7 or 8 articles, produce about 6 issues per year. And that is, we still have a publication backlog of about a year and a half, so we are trying to clear them as best as we can. Thank you.
Can you hear me from here?
Yes.
So I'm a newcomer to ISR Senior Editor Board. So after this morning's meeting, I think I have 3 main messages. One is that I encourage this community to submit to ISR, and the reasons are including one that I briefly mentioned earlier on, that ISR publishes papers based on all kinds of methodologies. So we know particular limitations or preferences for example, econometrics or behavior. So, and I think that's very clear. Second reason is that according to EIC, that the journal really still has space for publishing high quality papers. the number of papers published in the past few years are purely results of what were recommended and selected by the editors. So if there are more high quality papers, ISR can publish more papers than the last few years, each year. And I believe the statistics were around, I think 4 issues, and roughly about 10, 11, 12 papers in issue, and that can be more. So, and I think the third reason is that in terms of this journal is still evolving with the new EIC. There's still some discussion about the types of methodology and how to best review them and what are the expectations for papers with different methodologies. That wasn't, the question came up, but there was no time for this type of discussion. That will go offline. So, but there were a lot of interest. It's recognized just about every journals are getting more submissions in the analytics area. And as you can see, I think the new board will be very clear. There are additional analytics researchers like me who are also joining senior editorial board. So I'm not going to be the only one in addition to the existing editors who are very familiar with and have been very supportive of some of our analytics. So I think there are a lot of positive signs. Signs for the efforts and intention to understand papers. So this is I feel tonight this is going to be my main message to you. The next couple of messages is mainly to solicit your feedback. New EIC alone is going to think through some issues, and a couple of issues and discussion that came up was whether there should be author workshop, whether there should be reviewer workshop or editor workshop, and those things. I think those are all outreach to the community to help improve the quality, help authors higher quality submissions, and also help reviewers and editors to come up with higher quality reviews and also help with the process. So I think the effort, I'm very encouraged. And so if you have any suggestion or feedback that I can help take it back to the rest of the editorial, I'll be more than happy to listen to your feedback. So that will be my next message. And the last one is also related. Similar to all the other editors, that we love to hear what are your concerns or questions that we may not be able to answer, but knowing and finding out and being aware, I think that would be helpful to the journal as well, of course helpful to newcomers. So I want you to think about, and then I'd love to listen to your questions or comments.
If you were paying attention, I already told you. My name is David Woodruff, and I'm the editor of Informed Journal on Computing, but I'll remind you. The Informed Journal on Computing is sponsored by the Informed Computing Society, and the journal publishes papers at the intersection of operations research and computer science. As a practical matter, most of our papers have an optimization angle and are methodological. We do have an area in data mining and area editor who's a double agent, Rob, and so we welcome your submissions, but again, of course, you have to pick which journals you're looking at. Our journal tends to favor papers that have an optimization angle and a methodological angle, and of course we have other areas as well. Submissions to our journal are to a specific area. Look forward to it. I have these slides.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This feels a bit like the Oscar Awards, where everybody talks about the film that they've made and so on. My name is Gilberto Montebella. I'm area editor of the Journal of Multi-Criteria Decision Analysis, and I'm representing here the chief editor, Phil Stewart. For those who don't know about the journal, it's a niche journal focused on decisions with conflicting objectives. And I would argue actually that many important decisions in analytics actually have conflicting objectives. So it's an important field by itself. It's sponsored by the International Society on Multi-Criteria Decision Making. Therefore, it's a very international journal. And the idea is that it covers all the methodologies involved in multi-criteria decision analysis, and is focused on research, but also in application and evaluation of MCDA methods. I would say that the journal has published key papers in the fields. Let me mention some of the key papers. One of the papers that received the Decision Analysis Society Best Paper Awards a few years ago by Marsden Stewart was actually originally published in the journal MCDA. We also publish every 2 years the winner of the Wiley Prize in Applied Decision Analysis. And some seminal papers, for instance, Rifus Rand's reports that gave the origin to the American versions of MCDA. So the journal I think, is very active in this niche field. There are several areas. So there is the HP that many of you know, evolutionary multi-objective optimization, fuzzy MCDA. We also cover philosophical aspects of MCDA, multi-objective optimization and goal programming, outranking methods, risk and uncertainty in multi-criteria decisions, rule-based methods and artificial intelligence. Slowinski is one of the pioneers in this field. And I'm the editor for value and utility models. So if you are interested, if you are working in this field, and I think the good thing about analytics is that it's up for grabs, right? I mean, it's a new field and there are lots of interesting things. And an important area in analytics is actually helping decisions for governments and business that involve conflicting objectives. I do have a leaflet for it, and also there is a special issue coming on industrial and manufacturing engineering. If you are more interested, I'll leave the leaflets for you. Thank you very much.
My name is Brian Tomlin, representing Chris Tang for the Manufacturing and Service Operations Management Journal. Chris wasn't able to be here in time for the panel discussion. As many of you may know, MSOM. So MSOM is sort of the OM dedicated journal of the Informed Journal, the most closely associated with the MSOM Society, which is one of the larger societies of MSOM. So it's very much focused on operations management. The services of our manufacturing. While typically it doesn't have a methodological kind of mandate, I think it's fair to say historically those in Informs who worked at OM traditionally both operations research as a methodology. Over the last 5, 6, 7 years, the journal has certainly seen an uptick in empirical work and behavioral work as the society itself does more empirical and behavioral work. I think when I think about data analytics and analysis, I'm sort of hopeful and maybe skeptical a little bit when I think about the ability to publish in MSOM. So on one level, there's no question in my mind that operations management has a huge number of interesting problems for which there's lots of data available and companies are using data and decision analytics, machine learning to solve real operations and supply chain problems. So I don't doubt at all that there are real problems out there that would be of great interest to the MSOM community. I think where the challenge lies in the fact that what earlier said is about quality. And we might like to all think there's some objective measure of quality, but the reality is quality is a very subjective measurement that's done by referees and associate editors of a community. And so if someone submits a paper that's fundamentally different from what we typically see, it's very difficult to evaluate quality if it's so different from what our backgrounds are. So I would encourage people who are submitting work in that area to MSOM to be very familiar with the kinds of problems that MSOM tends to look at, the style of the papers, etc. And if you're going to submit something, I would say understand what's already known in the MSOM community about that type of problem. You might bring a fascinating new perspective, that's wonderful, but if it doesn't speak to someone about what's already known, it might be hard for us to evaluate it and appreciate it sort of properly. You might have 2 cents at the moment. We have to answer questions later.
My name is Ben Lev, and I was asked to discuss how to publish in top-tier journals, and I was given 5 minutes. I don't even need the whole 5 minutes. It's very easy. Do your best. And that's what our advice is. Do your best. We are different. My journal is different than the rest in 2 ways. One, the title of the journal. The title is Omega. When I talk to children and say Omega, I mean, the only thing they know is maybe a Greek alphabet or whatever it is. You have to read the subtitle to understand what the journal is all about. It's the International Journal of Management Science. So when I asked the founding editor where the name Omega came from, he said the following. He said, it's the last letter in the Greek alphabet, and therefore it should be the last word in management science. So, the founding editor was the editor for 21 years. Semi-long, he's from Imperial College. And the second editor was the editor for 7 years. The third one was 2 years. When they approached me and said, would you like to be the next editor? I looked at the time series and said, sure, I can finish it in 2 weeks. This was 15 years ago, and since then I saw 10,000 submissions. We get about 1,500 submissions per year, and we publish about 100 papers per year. The submissions include revisions. Our acceptance rate is somewhere like 13%. The second difference between us and other journals is that we are private business. We don't associate with any society. We're not part of Informs or whatever organization. We belong to Elsevier. So this is a product that belongs to Elsevier. They make money, they are happy. They don't make money, they are very sad. So it's a private business. It's slightly different, and therefore the goals, objectives are slightly different. I can tell you many, many stories about what happened over the last 15 years, but perhaps I should not take too much of the time and wait for you to ask questions. Thank you.
Production and operations, so I'm the deputy editor of production and operations management, and the editor-in-chief is Professor. This journal is part of Production and Operations Management Society, and been around since 1991. This journal now is part of Financial Times list and the UTG list, and was part of Business Week list and UTG. So it's widely regarded. Many of you have already submitted or published in this journal. So the way it is structured is a little different than many of the journals. So you will see many departments in the journals, and the department structure is based on either the topical things, or it could be we have like healthcare, or it could be humanitarian and or sustainability. Some of the departments are based on the methodology. So we also have empirical models, we have behavioral operations, and some of the departments are like, we have some newer departments like from practice, which promotes the work which is very closely related to practice. But in the last few years, we also have departments which we call interface departments. So we have interface with information systems, accounting, finance, all these interfaces basically serve the purpose of working with the other areas. So in summary, POM promotes all kinds of methodologies. As you can see the way department is structured, it promotes, it's very open journal in terms of what you can publish, as long as you have some connection to operations management. Your work should be related to that in the broad sense. It doesn't mean it has a supply chain specifically, as long as we look at the operation basis, it is fine. And the whole idea of interface was that we can work very closely with the other disciplines. We have been very successful, published a lot of good papers in these interfaces. Recently, we see the increase in the number. And some of these interfaces are, of course, we get more submissions than the others. But we form also supply chain management. We also have a department like manufacturing operations, so we can submit to that. Another thing you will find that when you go submit to form is that you can submit your paper to more than one department. The way it is structured, because you can go by topic, you can go by methodology, and so on. And this is actually by design. That gives we would like to give more options to the authors so that they can choose for such a reason if they have conflict of interest or whatever, they can pick up it. So, and this structure has been very, very successful over time. In terms of the publications, as long as you have a good quality paper and you interface with operations management, you can submit. So it doesn't matter what other areas are, but as long as it contributed to operations literature, as a journal, we are really open to it. And we always work on very good quality papers. In terms of the very quick statistics, I won't take too much time. We also see a lot of growth. Every year it's increasing by almost 100 the submissions. This year we are expecting around 1,000 submissions, and the acceptance rate is around 8%. We are trying to reduce the cycle time after acceptance and publication, so that is one of the goals. Also, we do try to do a lot of special issues. Right now we have one going on big data, one on healthcare, one is OMIS interface, which I am doing myself, and we have one, these are the special, one on humanitarian crisis. So, and we look out for whatever is the emerging area we try to help.
Thank you very much for all enlightenments. And dear colleagues, now it's your time to grill all these editors. Please ask any questions you have in mind. If any discussion point you want to raise, yes, let's start with Honor. The new chair of the data mining section, informed data mining section, right?
A couple of these, okay.
Yeah.
Well, my question is in relation to the subjective part of what we were just what we just mentioned, that the review process is very subjective, and we might have some kind of an input to that, and different journals have different procedures as to suggesting an EA or possible reviewers, and there are more strict structure or kind of more relaxed structure, but that definitely kind of affects that process. So I wanted to have your kind of opinion or guidance in terms of how we can help that process, or how important it is for you to have that information. Does it matter at all or not? So I wanted to have your input on that, so that I can take it back and work on that.
So speaking for Edison, paper submitted to me, typically I would use one of our standard associate editors. Sometimes there's guest studies, but I think if it was a paper that was very different to what we typically received, I would still want some part of the review team to have the typical and some type of perspective. So it would be helpful to suggest referees that may have good expertise. So we could think about a reviewer that may be a typical type of Epsom reviewer, plus someone who might have more expertise in the area of the paper. I think it would be unlikely that I would create a review team where it was all from a community that I myself had no visibility into, because I just don't know then what the norms and tastes of those reviewers are going to be. So try to strike a balance appropriately is what I would try to do.
So one of the things I'd like to add, in the form we have seen a lot of papers which are in the newer areas or the interface I was talking. So for example, in the healthcare papers, we were seeing a lot of papers where people have got data or implemented things. So many of the papers, in the special issue, what we have done is that we have used one of the healthcare practitioners, which is Informed Society has a very big group on we invite practitioners to our conferences. Now these are the practitioners who are involved in research too, so these are not like this. And those are part of the review process too. So we have seen more and more of that. That also gives a validity of whether what we're talking is makes sense or not. So that I'm seeing increase in that over time. More and more of our senior editors are going for that on top of our regular pool of reviewers. And I think that is a healthy sign that many reviewers are going.
I can share with my personal experience with the editing, because many times we come across papers which are maybe esoteric and difficult to locate the right kind of reviewers. So the best source of potential reviewers would be the people whom you cite in your papers, your references. So my advice would be, that's why I think many editors follow the same strategy. And because you can't expect editors to be experts in all areas. So there will be some, everybody has their limitations. So your citations are very important. So make sure that you cite papers in a meaningful manner so that your work has a relevance to what you are citing. Don't cite just for the sake of citing. So therefore, more chances are quite likely your papers will go to people whom you cite.
So I did feel I needed some input from the rest of the board this morning, so I asked some questions. And I think my synthesis of what I heard is that I will recommend one, ISR definitely will ask you for recommended reviewers, recommended AE, recommended SE. So SE is definitely one that's going to start the chain. And when it comes to AE, there is room for SE to appoint ad hoc AE due to the lack of expertise, or just because the other AEs that may fit are overloaded and we don't want, and it is quite important to have an AE that fits the area. So, like I said, I'm new, and whether how easily this can be exercised, I will find out. But so far, SE definitely is one that's much more, should be the one who's on top of the process, as soon as DIC assigns. And we did talk about that probably we will not, very important for authors to indicate that if you feel, I don't know who to recommend in AE, because you have carefully studied the AE's areas of expertise and you give very good reasons. Why? Because of the methodology and so on, the nature of very interdisciplinary that at this point you respectfully nominate. So we know the reason, and I think SE and EIC later on can better appreciate that we want to take some time to think about it. As the new SE, for sure that if this situation comes up, me an external new ad hoc AE, I personally will probably have a conversation with EIC to confirm. Or even though in the room that EIC says that really SE should be the decision makers. So I think that opens up and maybe help remove some concerns. Doesn't necessarily mean this will be practiced very, very often. At least not very. The practice is available, even in the past. I don't know how often. Likely not very often. That was adopted. The third one is about reviewers. So there were some concerns that people are nominating your own friends and some conflict of interest, and no one can double check on everything. And so I did feel that I like the practice of some of the best practices other SEs have suggested, or some of them also are AEs or were AEs before. So when they handle this, is that probably you nominate and then give us a sense of the skill sets that are relevant to reviewing your paper, and we may find other reviewers that have ISIS. So ISIS did prepare me a bit, and so and it had the AE and AEs and then the reviewers and so on. So it was pretty intense. I learned a lot. So if I may just make one more suggestion. So I was a great big supporter for the reviewer workshop and editor or AE workshop. I think will be useful not only for the journal to improve the quality of papers that authors submit, but also will help authors to see things from the other side. And it can also help you if you participate as reviewers. And I don't know how, what will be the, whether there will be, the review workshop will be open or not, and I will imagine that. So I will continue to support that. Maybe even come to, there are a lot of interesting resorts, since you can have a lot of resorts, so we may see how that will even work out.
So, selecting reviewers is indeed a very important question, both from the viewpoint of editors and authors. I would like to add something from my experience. In eJour, we are selecting reviewers from among authors of accepted papers on a similar topic. Moreover, we have a functionality in our editorial system which permits to find reviewers, specialists on a similar topic, and this functionality is powered by scopes. In fact, we try to provide authors with 3 review reports. It would be the best. To get 3, we have to ask 6, 7 people, because not all respond positively. So I would like to make a call to all of you, because you are either the author or reviewer. So please take into account that once you get 3 review reports, so this is a moral obligation for you to accept 3 times to review other papers. And also, we are rating the utility of the review report. So this is to avoid using the same reviewer who provided just a very shallow opinion. So finally, why we are not using suggestions of reviewers from the part of the authors, this is because, as you said, very often suggestions concern trends, and even authors themselves. So it happened a few times that it was a bad lesson that some authors suggested themselves by providing a different index.
I think it's just an overall comment that it's true that the quality is a subjective assessment. It's also so how there is a heavy subjective agreement among editors and reviewers in a particular journal. So every journal is a different tribe that thinks more or less in the same way. If you want to publish in a journal, you really have to understand how this tribe thinks and the values that this tribe has. If you cannot do that, then it's very likely that your paper is not going to fly. So I think you really have to read, heavily into the journal. I mean, get references that are meaningful, understand how the journal is. The selection of the area editor is crucial, because the area editor, again, is usually the person that is going to select the referees. And if you think about it, it's a process that is basically they are selecting 3 or 4 referees among the world to evaluate your research. You don't really have any control whatsoever on this process. So there is a matter of chances around it. It's very important that you understand the different area editors, how they think, what they research, what kind of community they are involved with, and again understand the tribe. So it really requires a bit of sociology to understand how you can actually prepare a paper of high quality. And quality is a subjective standard in that particular journal. And that's why it's also so hard to transition from one journal to another one. And even very large researchers might really struggle to publish in a community that they are not used to.
Just a little comment on that. I would agree that probably most people would have a similar perspective on a particular paper from that tribe. I have experienced and heard many stories of papers being liked for 3 review cycles, and things change on the 3rd or the 4th round, and all of a sudden they hate the paper, and then it's a rejection. I have heard enough stories like this, and a couple of times experienced that. Kind of like, is that a rarity, or why would it happen? Like if people liked it all the way, and then at the very last round, one little thing might change things or tip it over to something else.
I think that's an AE doing a bad job. To be very frank, I don't think papers that get to the 3rd and 4th round, at that point, AEs should do more than just curate. They should do more staple referee reports, and a good AE should be curating referee reports and managing the process at some point towards conversion. And the notion that it should be, well, when every referee is satisfied, that's when I say yes. There's not much value added to an AE who acts in that manner. So I would hope it's rare. It's probably less rare than we would all like to believe. But I think that's something that editors in chief and department editors have to manage the AEs to ensure things like that, don't happen. Unless there's some truly exceptional reason for it happening. But normally, that's, in my view, an AE is not taking a role properly.
Well, would you like to hear feedback on that? Like people may say, oh well, it's what it is. Let's take it somewhere else. Or would you like us to give you feedback if we go through some bad experience like that as chief and editors or senior people? Is it encouraged that if we have anything like that?
I'm amazed that anyone's withholding their feedback.
I have heard people saying
we get quite a bit of feedback. but I would say, I thankfully, you don't see that many that get to the 3rd or 4th and then get tracked. I think what can happen is a miscommunication where the author sees one thing and responds. The AE and the reviewer, the SE, look at it and see the reviewer didn't address these issues. And they may have been raised earlier, and the author thinks, I did address it. But then they get told, no, you didn't. It still is out there, and it becomes a very critical issue, and then it's not addressed, and finally, the AE, the SE said, basically, we're done. And I think I have seen that, and one of the things I think is very difficult in publishing is each of us has a thinner skin than we think we have. Okay? And we get a review, and I still find it hard to sit down and really objectively read a critical review of my work. Okay? It still hurts. Right? And I don't read it. I read it. Look, all of us have our little flaws. I'm always digging at, how could they have missed this? Well, if they missed it, it's likely my fault. Okay? But it is. It's a tough process, and we do get a lot of feedback. And some of the feedback I think just once or twice I've gone back in, and the author really made a cogent and rational point. And I went back and I carefully reread everything. That's sort of the role of it. And you look at it and say, yeah, this communication in this case was the AE or the SE, and then it's my job to talk to them. And sometimes I step in and take away the process. So it's very imperfect. We all try our best. The one thing that I do find somewhat frustrating myself is when we seek reviewers, because that is, when you get 1,000 papers a year, 1,000 new submissions, it's 3,000 reviewers you're seeking, right? And then somebody will send you, I've gotten emails after 2 weeks, I haven't heard anything in my favor. Okay. I'm shocked, really. Honest. But when we get a lot of, thankfully a lot, I get quite a few reviewers that if a paper is not a carbon copy of the particular methodology and area they work in, I can't review it. My God. Don't we want to learn? Don't we want to stretch ourselves? Now, they might say, you know, I may not be the best person to review, but think of the methodology, the approach. There's so much they can do, and yet it's like, why do we want to be stuck? You know, and what I do with that, of course, is those people are no longer reviewers. I just because we need to be when we're reviewing. The flip side is we also need to have an open mind. I think you're right. It is hard to get people to sort of think differently. Like this is but those are the great papers. I mean, to me, one of the finest writers and most logical people I've ever met, and a guy who essentially started the whole field virtually by himself, is Vernon Smith in experimental economics. Now, this guy struggled to get his work accepted, but he did it. And he did it in a way where he made a huge impact. But his work was rejected at the beginning. No, there's nothing here. We don't know this type of work. Man, it was awesome. And if it was somebody who wasn't as smart as he is, couldn't write as well as he is, but what a wordsmith. Just watching him was amazing. I thought to myself, and I'd read and I go, how do you write this? How do you write this well? And then, of course, I wondered, how do you write this well and get rejected? and that's, I think, we have a responsibility as editors to push our ADs, our SEs, our reviewers to be more open, to essentially think, okay, the field needs to change. We can't be stagnant. So, I mean, but again, the process is, I mean, look, I watch it, sometimes I shake my head, and I'm amazed. I don't know how everybody else here, but it's amazing when you get the first, like we try for always 3 reviewers if we can. Sometimes we can't. I can't tell you the number of times the first 2 reviews come in, rejection, advisory the same paper. And it's like, it happens so frequently that you look at it and say, then you read the reviews, and they're actually not that far apart, right? But somebody views A and says, there's too much to do, it's a new paper. Somebody else says, oh, you can do this, this, and this. So it is tough. It's a tough process, and you know, to me, when I get emails where authors are blowing off steam, fine, let them blow off steam. I write back and I say, well, you know, if I consistently ignore the reviewers and the ADs and the SEs, I'm going to be all by myself. I'm going to really hate this job.
I just want to add a little bit to Jim's point. From my personal experience, both editors as well as reviewers are extremely averse to committing type 2 error. They don't mind committing type 1 error. Type 1 error, alpha would be like 50%. Type 2 error cannot be more than 0.5%. Okay, that is why you will find that in general, rejection rates of most good quality journals are like 90%, 90%. So that is the mindset of people. I mean, that's something you have to live with. I mean, because if you accept rejectable data, then your reputation is at stake. So therefore, both the editors as well as reviewers are very careful from that point of view. On the front of convergence, they talk about of the review cycles. In general, by and large, about 80 to 90% of the cases, convergence does happen. I can't say that. So there may be a few cases, and I've personally seen some cases for a variety of reasons. Decisions have to be overturned for a variety of reasons. So ethical reasons and whatever reasons you may think of. So that does happen. But after 2 or 3 rounds, you should definitely expect a fair amount of convergence.
So, one question I have is, I'm a practitioner, I work in research and innovation in the industry, and one thing that often happens is that we face very interesting applications where we try known methods to such application, but then the application itself is really interesting from a practitioner point of view, and you would love to have it really shown to the community. But a lot of times, some journals are more strict into having more rigor in the methodology or novelty in the methodological part. So I guess my question is, which of you guys believes in encouraging and having more application-oriented papers, and how do you find application-oriented, and what do you look for exactly in such papers so that they are publishable and in the quality that you look for? And what about even making it further into case studies papers, which are even more just applying very good methods? How do you see that, and what's your advice on that?
So for MSOM, what Chris has started is like Tom's actually, a practice-based competition. So with the idea that the finalists will be published in MSOM as a way, in some sense, to encourage application-based papers, recognizing that the criteria to be judged on has to be somewhat different. The likelihood of a paper which is an amazing application, an amazing methodology, the race of thin needles trying to thread. So that's how MSOM is trying to partially address.
I think it's a great way. I have a paper there myself, by the way, and I think it's a great way to get to see other girls doing it as well.
We call it POMS to some extent. POMS to consider.
Yeah, so POMS, in our conference, we have this POM practice actually that is also run like this. We encourage all those finalists to submit to the full papers, and they are done independently. And this POM practice department is dedicated to that. So I think, many journals are going in that direction. So I think you will see more of that. We're moving towards more practice-oriented cases. We're going to see more of that.
You raised a very important point. I just want to share a bit of my own personal experience again with you on that. There is a huge divide between academia and industry that is indisputable. And personally, we had which is still undergoing the fourth round of review in the marketing journals. The research was an excellent, in my opinion, was an excellent econometric study on how the negative spending on advertisements by the Republicans has resulted in increase in enrollment in Obamacare. Okay, so that we econometrically be sure from real data. But the reviewers want what is the theoretical foundation for that. I said, I just scratched my head. This is a fact. This is happening in reality. This is the application. Then we have to sketch a theory, come up with some psychological theories, communication theories, blah blah, whatever, and try to show that this is what it is. Okay, it's still going to, it's not paper not accepted. It's still going through a third round of review in a leading marketing journal. This is what we could want. So there is definitely there's a divide between industry, applications, and academia. What academia requires is some theory, some model, some analysis, some empiricism to be justifiable in a compact manner. In the earlier generation, people are more focused on methodological research, where you can develop a new methodology, develop new algorithm to solve a problem. Still, people proceed in that direction. But in the broader segment of the academic community, we tend to be more data-driven. So therefore, whenever you draw conclusions or any empirical conclusions based on data, it is always a good idea to support it with some theoretical foundation. Because that is what reviewers want.
I would say it's very a little bit different. And that is, if you think about it, let's say if it's a straightforward application, a well-known technique, and so do you publish the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one? And that's the problem to me. And I think what I look for, and what I try to talk to our reviewers about, is what is generalizable implication? What did you find that's different, that offers a generalizable inference or potentially generalizable inference that is different, so that the reviewers, but the whole community learns something. And so what's the takeaway? And I think there's been some really interesting applications where you really have to show this problem is different, or nobody's been able to use this technique, or use it in a way to solve this kind of problem. So now we've done this. Now we begin to think about other ways to use it. And so, to me, the issue is what is more generalizable than just this application, right? And I think the difference is if the application is pretty much what I'd expect to see from a PhD student when I'm teaching them techniques and giving them problems, that paper's never going to make it, right? But if we're talking about, that's a deep takeaway. Okay? It's a great application. And I mean, I really like that kind of work, but where there's a generalizable twist. The other thing which I think Rob raised a very important point, and that is really solid empirical work. If you think about what we do, one of the things we tend to have from reviewers often is, well, you have to have a theory to start with. Well, where do theories come from? Theories very often are generated from empirical observation, where we begin to see, when engineers, for God's sakes, that's the whole point of the philosophy of science. We talk about, oh, how do we learn all these scientific principles? Because somebody says, oh my God, when I get A, B occurred. We try that again. So now I'm going to get more formal, more rigorous testing. And so empirical analysis leading to the development of theory. Right? If you look at a lot of fields, the development of theory is founded in empirical analysis, and the testing of resulting theories is again empirical analysis. And I think in many of our reviewers, it's like, well, you have to have theory-based empirical analysis. No, you don't. I mean, by God, you go out and you see, look at this, right? This is pretty interesting. So, that's my
something.
My neighbor just said a lot of things that I wish to express. I will be very short. To my mind, the application papers may be of three kinds. The first one is an application paper which is presenting a straightforward application of some off-shelf method. And then such a paper will not be very interesting because it will probably do not inspire anyone to make a similar way. Especially that this kind of paper is usually taking long in explaining again how the known method is applied. The second category of papers is of application papers. We need is that one where there is a new problem and a complex problem which is formalized in such terms that it permits an application of a known method. And this is inspiring usually. For example, the first one could be just, for example, problem which is multi-criteria decision problem, and then a known method just off-shelf. Second one, a new application, for example, car sharing problem as a combinatorial problem. So this is a new kind of application, inspiring others in this way. And then third category of application papers are those where the author is spending a lot of description on the problem itself, because this is very complicated and it needs a lot of specialized terminology. So such papers will be rather better for journals specialized in the area of application. For example, if there is a very complex chemical process and a lot of details are provided about this process, so it will not be so much interesting for people from operating research, but rather from chemical industry. So power systems, chemical industry, these are examples of papers of the third category.
Yeah, those are great points. I think you'll see, like you see now, a lot of papers. Healthcare is a huge area. You see decision support systems in healthcare. And some of the papers are wonderful, but other papers, you got to be a doctor to read the damn thing. Okay? And you're going through it, and you write a nice sort of rejection back saying, look, it's kind of potentially interesting, and I don't know who's going to read it, right? Not our readership. And those are tough papers, because there may be great things in there, but I can't read it. Give it to my son.
It's also really tough because when you go to a medical journal, you wouldn't understand the OR in it as well.
Well, they're starting. They're actually, what's really interesting is data mining is developing. And in fact, I just saw the only reason I see these things is my son's a third-year medical student, so as part of the thing, we get the JAM, but he doesn't want to deliver to where he lives, so I do, right? So I look at the JAM, and here I am looking at a decision support system, and well, cool, right? But they're starting to understand the need for analytics, and that's, to me, it's great. And there's some papers that are of interest to essentially almost all of our journals because it's important stuff. But when you write it for a doctor, we can't use it.
Yeah, too analytical for a medical journal and too medical for an analytical journal. So we are stuck between two.
You know, I think a lot of the application type of papers has uniqueness, novelty. It's just that you need to bring it up. If you write it in such a way that I use this and I found this and it's better than John Doe's paper, that's not good enough. So there's a lot of effort that goes into pre-processing the data, right? We don't talk enough about data. You know, we all do analytics research because it's the hot thing to do. And most of our time spent on understanding and transforming the data in such a way that certain analytic techniques can consume the data in the way that they're supposed to. How to use the nominal and numeric variables, when do you aggregate, disaggregate, how granular level you need to keep different variables, what is the impact of, for instance, a nominal valued variable with a lot of unique values in neural networks versus in decision trees, right? You need to understand how the algorithm actually interprets data and represent in such a way that you get the right result that's impactful. Another thing is that if the outcome of the research is impactful to wherever you apply it to, there are journals that are very receptive to that. In the Interface is one of the journals where you can actually publish almost pure application as long as there is testimony on the customer side that says this application actually solved the problem and provided such and such benefits. So there usually is the novelty. It's just that you need to bring in the paper. You know, most of the journals are rejecting 90+% of the paper. So the default decision tree rule is rejection. So you need to make the case to get your paper accepted, and you usually make that case, in my personal opinion, in the first few pages of the paper, not in the rigorous analytics or how much you discuss, but in the introduction section. If you capture the reviewer that this is cool stuff, I'm going to keep reading it, they start collecting evidence in your favor to either accept it or RNR it as opposed to rejecting it. So you have to motivate.
I didn't even go one step further, the abstract.
Exactly.
The abstract is so underutilized by many authors. You read the abstract and go, what? It's like the last thing they do is, oh my God, they want a 150-word abstract. Write one. So it's got to go.
Another thing is that using, you know, a novel method, a unique, you shouldn't say it. You should imply it. You know, the way that you explain it should come out as a unique, as opposed to you saying that it's unique. When you say it's unique, it's novel, there's a good chance that it's not, because you're kind of painting it, as opposed to kind of writing in such a way that it comes out naturally, not explicitly you specifying it.
So as though we divided people like audience and editors, we have Ramesh Sharda. He's also eminent area editor in Digital Science Journal. I think you wanted to say something, right?
Well, actually, I think Gerson made the reference to it already. So this is going back to your comment, which called that informs self-published interfaces, which is not represented here right now, but I myself have published, I believe, at least 3 papers in interfaces that were entirely based on industry projects. And at least to my delight, interfaces has expanded its scope as well. So the Wagner Prize issue that came out recently had at least one paper that was purely predictive analytics, and I knew about it. So in fact, my PhD from Kalpushan, we submitted a paper to Interface. So it's still undergoing review. We haven't heard back yet. So, but it was a predictive analytics, a multidimensional labeling problem from medical data, but it was done for a company, so therefore with a company letter verification, we hope that we make it. So certainly look at that as an also. And on the decision sciences side, wearing that hat, as Wilson said, I think largely having some method innovation, and by method, not just the algorithm innovation, but more and more, I think, data innovation, data processing innovation, or probably even more importantly, in many cases, performance measures innovation. So several years ago, we published a paper in PALM, and it was based on RFID data. So RFID data is nothing, right? All you get is, hey, I'm a tag, I was read here at this point, at this station. And by itself, there is no prediction to be done, no optimization to be done with the data set, which is kind of an inch deep and mile wide, and going to get here. But by creating performance measures, we were able to convince the PALM editors that it added value to understanding the supply chain operations. So I think as long as there are innovations somewhere and they are brought out correctly, there is hope.
What I was going to say was that I think computers in OR would definitely be interested in a new application. I interpreted your comment about the application as being Roman's second example. And the key thing there is, as a lot of people have said, it's the positioning of the paper that's going forward. For computers in OR, you would have to do not just, okay, this is the data set that the application was based on, but then explore, create larger, more widely varied data sets, and then try to use that experimentation to come up with insight as to what drives the problem forward. I think that would be something computers in OR would be very interested in.
Any other questions?
I have this question. Most of the journals are, clearly structured. It has departments. The data mining community in Informs, quite often integrates many methods. For example, we use traditional machine learning methods to know what's going on in the data. Then that feeds into some optimization technique or simulation technique. We tweak the algorithm there to make it efficient, to solve this problem. So the knowledge comes in integrating all of these. But when the journals are structured, by departments, I hear some exceptions are there. It's hard for us to position it. We are kind of not sure where to send it. Then there is this tribal language kind of thing going on. So we do not know how to position our paper. So that's kind of a concern. So I just wanted to raise it here, and I also want to hear if there is any discussion going on internally. We are living in big data era, where we are putting together all these different things. So I just wanted to raise this issue and see what how.
At POM we have discussed this issue actually, and we feel that it's an important problem. That's why in POM we have departments not just based on the methodology or based on the. So we are topic based, we have methodology. So for example, you're talking about India. It's fine as long as we are doing this healthcare data and you're looking at the different kind of methodology and you give some insights to some of the healthcare department. So, and many journals are doing that these days. You will see that the digital sciences had created the structure. They didn't go to the department eventually, but we had discussions with the digital sciences of doing that. some departments, which I think, and some departments are quite broad. If you look at that, they're not that narrow we're talking. So I think more and more journals, it used to be a problem, I'd say it is becoming less of a problem with time, and every journal is finding that merging will happen. And that's what I feel.
You're raising a very important issue, and I'm struggling with that myself. We have 4 different areas, but when you write a paper, the paper never belongs to a single one area. It usually crosses multiple different areas. And the fate of the paper depends what you decide, if you want to send it here or here. And I struggle with that, but I keep the door open for the area editors to communicate among themselves. And if somebody feels that maybe I made the wrong decision by sending it to this area editor, then they will transfer it to another one. And I'm not sure what the correct answer to this problem is, but it is certainly a problem. I wish we had a numbering system where you can simply say this belongs to number 1, 2, or 3. We don't have that. Let me also make a comment about the previous topic that was discussed extensively about mistakes which editors make. And we make 2 mistakes. One is rejecting good papers, and I feel very bad about that. But my opinion is that the good paper will eventually find its way to another journal and will be published. So I might cause a delay of maybe a few months. But the second mistake that we make is accepting bad papers, papers that have mistakes in them. And that is a nightmare for me. This is a headache. This will, first of all, it ruins the reputation of the journal, but it also creates a sequence of errata and comments and corrections and things like that will follow. So when I get 3 reports, referee reports, and I see one of them is negative, I use that as a veto vote. Like I look at the rejection recommendation as do not touch this paper. Even though the other 2 or 3 referees were very positive, I view that as a rejection, as a veto. It's nice to have 4 or 5 different opinions, but this is a luxury. We not always have this thing. When in doubt, I always reject. I just write a polite letter and say that the referee found something that he doesn't like or she doesn't like in the paper, and maybe the problem is on the author who did not explain the issue properly. After 2 or 3 tries, if you fail to explain yourself, there is a problem.
Olivia? Marsden?
Yes, information system by nature is multidisciplinary. So the top 2 IS journals don't have departments. And in my own personal experience, I think I will apply that too. I think to carefully recommend reviewers, one from one area, another from another area. Not they're your friends, but they are the authors of papers yourself. Even though they may not be selected, they give indications of who should be the reviewers. And so we have similar paper. Social network is one, and then Bayesian network is latent variable in another, and there may be more. So it was very difficult, but it got through. So be hopeful.
I'll add to Olivia. So one good thing you can do is that suggest reviewers. So you know that it covers across. That's a regular opportunity to do.
I think also anytime you basically work with this product, what happens is it always looks, all the referees will say, well, it's not deep on my side, it's not deep on the other side. So you have to be good to convince them why the integration of those 2 things is added value that neither side has. And that's hard, because referees, they judge what they know and say, well, the part that I know, so you got to convince them that the integration of those 2 things is what's adding value. That's on the authors at some point to make that case.
I have a question to Professor Cheri. Would like to know what's your opinion or preference what the problem is addressed in the articles for the computing methodologies? Because the information of computing. And computing, what's the definition of the computing?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So of course, like our journal has a stated mission to look at the intersection of operations research and computer science. It has also a de facto set of preferences which dominate, and we're dominated by operations research. The society that we're created by is a society of informs, and most of our area editors, associate editors, and referees are operations research people. And over time, the journal has moved way more toward methodology and methodological innovation, so that if you have examples, referees and editors would want, again, to see that it's demonstrated to be generalizable. So papers that solve one problem often don't get accepted. And the authors write at the end, you could take what I did and apply it to other problems, that probably won't fly. They probably will say, no, you take what you did and apply it to other problems. So that's sort of where we are. And with journals that have this kind of structure, it's a ship that steers itself really more than I steer it slowly, but that's where we are right now. It's a heavily biased toward methodology, I would say.
Right.
Yeah, nowadays there is not a clear separation between tools and statistics and tools and operations research. So as journals that are typically OR-oriented, optimization, stochastic processes, what is your stance on papers that deal with traditional statistics? And do you separate yourselves from statistics journals?
Well, it depends on where if we do get papers in probability and statistics, and if the contribution is in statistics, there's a lot of really good journals in statistics, and so that's where it should go. Of course, there are authors, again, who are using operations research or computer science techniques to solve a statistics problem, but they probably should send that to a statistics journal. I understand the frustration, but for most of the operations research journals aren't oriented toward problems that are pretty purely statistics. Realizing that there's a lot of optimization in statistics. I mean, maximum likelihood is maximization. So I feel your pain, but I think there's a tendency to say that if this contribution is in statistics, send it to a statistics journal.
Actually, can I add a little bit from our area point of view, machine learning area? Typically, we get a lot of papers with a lot of data where they apply traditional statistical techniques or marginally improved statistical techniques and draw some conclusions about the data. Those papers will not fly in our journal. So I think what we are essentially looking for is some methodological innovation. A method which can do better than our state-of-the-art method, or something which can be proven to be more effective, preferably theoretically, or in conjunction with empirical work. So that is what we are looking for in our area. There are a lot of statistics-related papers that come to machine learning and knowledge management, and bulk of them, which get accepted, they will have a significant amount of innovative development in that, methodologically.
Yeah.
So I'd like to say, as to statistics, so especially for analytics, it is very important. I would like also to say that we should avoid exaggeration, because sooner people are very often biased by statistics. They do not admit that there is a very important part, which is data preference, which has nothing to do with statistics very often. And there are also non-statistical methods of data analysis. So we should be open and consider statistics as one of possible tools. This is not the methodology in itself for operations research, for example.
papers recently we've gotten that I really like, because what they are is they're, I would call them extensions, improvements in estimation, in probability estimation, et cetera, but it's linked to things like text mining, where you're trying to tease out. And so you look, if you went to a statistics journal, it's not enough there, right? But because it's linked to a really important area that I consider analytics and text mining, I think it's potentially great papers. But it has to, we're talking already about areas. Andy originally did our meeting first. That's why the journal exists, because it was very difficult to get technical quantitative work published in sort of IT work in the early years. And he went with areas. And when I agreed to take over, I said, I don't want to have areas because the areas are all merging and people don't, it's like they don't know where to send papers. And so we've gone away from that. But I think statistics, quite a bit of what I would call working statistics that is really important in our area, and so I welcome them.
There's no more question, I guess.
Yes. I don't know whether it is, how much it is valid, but so you mentioned that when I see one rejection, I will reject the paper, and so this is what happens many times, like in first or second round, we see that two reviewers are very positive and they are saying very good things, but one of them is negative and the paper is rejected. I don't fully agree with you that like a good paper will be published and so it is just a few months later, because I think if you think about the students, like we are the students who do our dissertation, and like at the end of our 4th year, we have finished our dissertation, and we have about a year or at most 2 to have some paper to be in the job market. And so when we get rejected, you may easily changing the life of the person. I mean, it's not just because he cannot get that, and so eventually, I mean, even if he gets that paper accepted 2 years later, and you know, some of the journals, even the first round is 6 months, not like honestly, right? So, but I don't know whether it is possible or not, or whether it is a suggestion or not. But if it was possible that the journals can have some dissertation section, and so the papers that are being submitted to them, so the faculties like say that, okay, this is my student, and so please carefully like revise this paper to avoid, I'm saying that like, because the life of the students are changing, that's the situation.
Good question. Academics are rewarded when they get black swans. So basically what happens in academic life is that you get lots of rejections, you get some papers accepted in good journals, you get lots of rejections of proposal funky, and you get a few that you go through. So basically, the system rewards those that get the black swans. Sometimes they are just lucky, sometimes they are really good, and so on. So if you think about the way that you are playing an early academic life, is really about diversifying a portfolio and the risk. Right? So what you have to have is a small set of good quality papers sent to different journals, and maybe one of those is going to be accepted. So if you bet everything on a single paper and get consistent projections, you are really in trouble. And I've seen young academics doing that and really get in big trouble because they bet on a single paper, the paper got systematically rejected by many journals, and then at the end she was really. So if you think about the portfolio and the risk,
it's very risky.
It's a very risky business.
Also, this is a phenomenon that we do not like so much, that there is a set of papers of the same author, and in each paper there is one simple idea, which is new, and then we call it incremental publishing. So this should be absolutely avoided. So understand your point.
But I would put it a little differently. And that is, I think you would be expecting the journal and journal editors to play the role of the major professor. The major professor who should never let a paper go that he doesn't think or she doesn't think is ready. And part of, the thing is the better the preparation of the paper, the more likely you're going to. But it's to say we should change the structure of a journal perhaps, or create a special section of a journal, or somehow say, well, we're going to be more sensitive because it's a student and they're in the job market. The next thing, I'm willing to bet everybody up here has gotten letters saying that the co-author's up for promotion and they want the review to be 7 days or less, and they don't want to have a long revision process. So please accept this because it's absolutely critical. You will ruin this person's life. I mean, and you get it, not quite that dramatic, but that's not our job. Our job is to try to do the best we can to structure and oversee processes that are professionally appropriate, that are as objective as we can make them. And there's always subjective elements, we all understand that. But we cannot change, I don't think we want to change based upon an individual's particular subjective situation. And that's my view.
My suggestion was not like because he is in the job market, accept it. My suggestion was that if two reviewers are seeing positive and one of them is negative, just like assign another reviewer or another reviewer to see maybe it is positive.
We can, and I think all of us have, some of us would do that, some of us would not review a negative one, but that's part of it. And I don't think we've all tried to establish a process that we think develops a quality journal. And it's always, for example, I've had situations where on one negative review I rejected, but it's the quality of that negative review. How well, the points they raise, and they say, my God, this person read the paper, and there's a contradiction here. And if I got two positives, you think I'm going to send it out again? Hell no. What I do is I write this person and say, thank you.
I think
you did an amazing
the second part of your comment should have been also that you should give us a lot of credit for those cases that we accept papers and the author received a nice position or a nice raise or whatever. So don't forget that part.
I think the reason for rejection matters. If it's rejection for technical correctness, one person find a flaw will move a lot of weight. Rejection for taste, or two people like it, one doesn't. There's different things. I don't think all journals have one rejecting is often rejected. I think that's very much on journals.
So we have like 5 minutes left, and I want to have the luxury of being the moderator. There were like 2 requests from the audience, which I don't see right now being here. One was, we are about to be a society right now. Data mining section will hopefully be a data mining, statistics, quality, and reliability, D-squared society. And based on this, a lot of people actually in the morning and afternoon sessions, they said, if there's any possibility that the journals introduce a section which is dedicated to decision analytics, data mining, business analytics, some of which already did, like decision science did, JBR, EGR. I mean, I'm not offering this to discussion, I just want you to know about that from the audience perspective. That was a request. The second is, every journal has a different hierarchy of editors. For example, I know from Dr. Marsden, he directly sends it to the reviewers as he just reeled out, and then he says, you have only 7 weeks, I'll keep the 1 week for myself, and then make the decision in two months, basically. And Elsevier, as well as I think Springer-based journals, they take pride of being relatively faster in terms of the review cycle time, and they publish this online. We are requesting the same thing for the informs-based journals. I mean, if they can say from first submission to the first decision, from first submission to the final decision, acceptance or rejectance, whatever that might be, that would really give good idea to the potential audience and authors, because of the structure being like editor-in-chief, senior editor, area editor, and bunch of reviewers, it takes a lot of review cycle, which is kind of linking all the questions that people might be having. I want to hear particularly myself for the informs-based journals actually. Is this published somewhere online, which I could not see?
So ENSOM has definitely targeted, it was out to referees for around 5 days. The AE then is 10 days, and then the DE is 5 days. You can scribe for, 75-day turnaround time. You know, on average, they're pretty good. I'd say if you are to show 10 years ago, there's huge credit for changing the cycle time from 6 to 12 months down to 2 to 3 months. So we give public guidelines, we don't always hit them, but we do a pretty good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, Paul also.
There is one last question, I think, if you can bear with us. Yeah. For the last question, we are wrapping up.
It's the best question.
We kept the best for the last.
Perhaps building on what Mohammed said, reviewers and associate editors are very impactful to people's lives. Yet they have no interest in doing a good job, because there are really no rewards in promotions and tenure for doing a very good job as reviewers. It's more important to publish one more paper rather than having done a good job as reviewers for many years. You are editors, but also many of you have positions in your schools of high up in the hierarchy in various schools. So perhaps you can start some initiatives to solve this problem that is everywhere in academia, not just in informs, but everywhere. So I was wondering if you had anything.
Push back actually. Are the referees do a bad job? Sure, but I think lots of reviewers do a good job. And when authors complain of papers rejected, there's very few authors who haven't themselves rejected papers in their roles as referees. I think early in one's career, one of the things you can signal and quality is your referee reports. So I actually think a lot of referees do a good job. Conditional on, they just can't. Are there some bad reports? Sure, and that's where absolutely editor-in-chief and department editors and AEs should step in and give feedback to referees when they're not doing good reports. We certainly should do that. But I think a lot of referees spend a lot of time doing good reports.
I agree 100%. There's something else. When I send out reports back, when I send out a report that is an embarrassment, it reflects badly on me. I have no problem when I send out reports to authors saying, I give them 3 reports, and I say I ignore report number 2. Okay? When I said that goes back to the reviewers who get that. I also, when I select reviewers, when I get that, what I consider to be, I call a lazy review. Is that the nice term? They didn't bother to pay attention. I don't send another review. And if they ask me, I basically send an email saying, here's a copy of your report. Is this your best professional judgment? It's not. I mean, the thing is, we don't reward, but as authors, it is inherent on authors to be part of the reviewing process and to do as good a job as they can do in reviewing, where that's the review they like for their paper, where it's the thoroughness. And it's not the positive or negative, it's the thoroughness and the carefulness. I saw David Olson earlier today. This is the guy I abuse because he is unbelievable. I mean, the thoroughness of his reviews, and if he comes to a point where he's confused, he just talks about it, confused, and helps the author understand. When he writes a negative review, which he does, we all do, so constructive, right? And I look at him and say, my God, this guy walks on water. But it is one of the things that really frustrates me, is I have had authors who continually refuse to read, or just every time decline. Then the same people turn around and say, I sent my paper in, 1 month ago, my God, where's the review? And those, I have to admit, on occasion, by growing up in the inner city of Chicago, catch up with them. Those authors' papers, they've sometimes gotten lost in the system. It takes a significant amount of time, right? But the people who are, if somebody is a really great reviewer, boy, you watch over their review process on their paper. You do, because you know how much they've given back to the profession. They've earned it, right? And I think it's, all of us, we're in this together, right? And we're a hell of a lot better if we're good colleagues to each other. Good colleagues doesn't mean, accept or whatever. It means do a really careful review. That is, if it's negative, but always try to be constructive. That's my view.
And there is a reward, because most of the journals have this base reviewers, awards and all. That helps you basically in your tenure packet and promotion packet. Not only that, in form especially, we look at it very closely and we invite them to come in editorial review boards, and all. So
see, there's that ultimate penalty that if you do a really good job, then you become an editor.
There is a reward.
That's great, but I would want to explore that's great.
Yes, this is a very important point. In 2010, we raised this question to Elsevier, to other journals too. And but they are listening rather in a very little way. So we established for ourselves an index, which is measuring the work of our reviewers. And every year we are giving certificates of excellent work as reviewers to a number of reviewers, and we postulate still to Elsevier to introduce this index, taking into account the number of reviews, the quality, the timeliness, etc., to introduce it as a measure of the input of reviewers' work, to be able to show it in promotion at the university at the same.
We're also Elsevier, and one of the things that I do every year is I go through all the reviewers, and we have really great statistics on the amount of time they've taken, et cetera, and I kind of read all their reviews, and that's the pool for the next AEs. And AEs are on, they're not doing, basically they're replaced. And so that's part of it, and I think that is important, and I think, activity within journals, to me, I still review a lot for other journals, and because to me, I learn a tremendous amount by review. And sometimes it's frustrating because I see a good piece of work that is so badly presented or whatever. But I learn a lot, and I'm thinking, wow, this is great work. For me, it's still fun, right? All of us up here, we wouldn't be up here if we didn't enjoy it. We try to do our best, and I always wonder about coming to conventions because it can be dangerous. So we always go out to the side. We're right by the door.
When you rate the reviewers, do you look at the time they took?
Yeah, I do. And we have automatic reminders, and essentially, I pull them up.
Editors are starving, so we should let them eat their dinner,
Yeah, like I said,